Welcome to Even Tacos Fall Apart, a podcast with real stories, real struggles, and real hope. I'm MommaFoxFire, and today we are talking about unmasking without losing your shit. Before we get into the interview, I want to take a few minutes to talk about what masking actually is, because if you're neurodivergent, there's a good chance you've been doing it for so long, it just feels like your personality. Masking is when you suppress, hide, or perform over who you actually are in order to be more acceptable to the people around you. That could be laughing at the right times even when you're overwhelmed. It could be making eye contact even though it costs you something. Pretending you can handle noise and crowds and small talk and back-to-back meetings when your nervous system is absolutely screaming at you that no, you cannot. It can be working 80 hours a week because that's what success looks like in the books you've been reading, even though it's destroying you. A lot of folks who mask don't even know they're doing it. They just know they're exhausted all the time. They know that being around other people, even people they love, wipes them out completely. They know that they've spent years trying to be a better, cleaner, more organized, more productive, more normal version of themselves. And it has never once worked the way they hoped it would. For a lot of neurodivergent folks, and that includes autistic people, people with ADHD, and plenty of people who've never had a diagnosis but know something is going on, masking can start very young. You figure out fast what gets you accepted and what gets you teased or dismissed or told you're too much. So you adjust. You sand down your edges. You get really good at reading rooms and reading people. You build a version of yourself that other people find easier to deal with. And you wear that version every single day until you're either burnt out completely or something forces you to stop. Burnout from masking is not regular tired. It's not fix it with a vacation tired. It's a deep, heavy, nothing left kind of exhaustion where even the things you love start to feel like obligations. A lot of folks hit that wall and still don't connect it to masking because they've been doing it for so long, they don't even know there's another option. That is where today's guest comes in. Angie Dixon is an author, artist, and creator of the Leonardo Trait, which is her framework for the kind of brain that's wildly creative, multi-passionate, and completely incompatible with the idea of picking one thing and sticking to it forever. Angie is late diagnosed autistic. She was diagnosed at 55 after decades of masking and burning out and rebuilding. And after nearly 20 years of writing a book she thought was about creativity, before realizing it was actually about neurodivergence the whole time. She now helps neurodivergent creatives stop apologizing for how their brains work. She's also the creator of the Unmasked Summit, which was specifically designed to be the least overwhelming event possible, which means it runs entirely through email. No video calls, schedules to keep. I really love that so much. Angie is honest and funny, and she doesn't pretend she has all the answers, including about her own life. She still masks sometimes. She still catches herself sliding towards burnout. And that, honestly, is exactly why this conversation is worth your time. We get into what masking actually looked like for her before she had language for it. We talk about what unmasking looks like really in practice. And it's not the dramatic overnight transformation you might be imagining. We talk about how to tell the difference between professional behavior and erasing yourself, how to spot burnout before it takes you all the way out, how to stop treating unfinished projects like personal failures, and what it means to build a life that actually fits the brain you have. Whether you have a diagnosis, whether you're in the middle of figuring that out, or whether you've just always felt like the self-help books everyone loves are written for someone fundamentally different from you, this conversation has something for you. All right, here's Angie. Okay, we got to get that. There we go. Now I'm me and you're you. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mental Health Monday here on Even Tacos Fall Apart. I am really excited for tonight. We are going to be talking about unmasking without spontaneously combusting. And when I've been talking to people about this topic, I've been calling it unmasking without losing your shit. So, whichever way you want to put that is just fine. But I'm really grateful to be joined today by Angie Dixon. Angie, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to join us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I'm super looking forward to this conversation. Before we dive into it, a couple of reminders. We do have a question queue open, so if you have a question tonight and you are here live with us, feel free to drop that into the chat and we'll make sure to answer it while we are here. That is why we do these things live, is to make sure to get y'all's questions answered. But let me tell you guys a little bit about Angie. Angie is an author, artist, and creator of the Leonardo Trait, which is her way of naming something a lot of us have felt for a long time, the kind of like brain that has a lot going on, a lot of interest, a lot of creativity, but absolutely refuses to fit into one single neat box. Angie is late diagnosed autistic, multi passionate, and deeply creative. She has spent decades masking, burning out, and trying to be a better version of herself that felt acceptable instead of authentic. Eventually, that stopped working in a very real way, and unmasking became less of a choice and more of a survival skill. These days, Angie helps neurodivergent creatives stop apologizing for how their brains work and start building lives and work that actually fit. She's also the creator of Unmasked, which is a summit for neurodivergent creatives that happens in the least overwhelming way possible through email. We were just talking about this, so it's not endless video calls. I think that's so cool, so creative, so unique. Her work lives at the intersection of creativity, burnout, disability, identity, and recovery. And she talks about all of that with honesty, humor, and a little bit of chaos in the very best way. As we know here, that's how life goes, is just chaos. It's fine. Like I said, our main theme tonight is unmasking without spontaneously combusting. I cannot think of a better person to talk about what unmasking really looks like, what it costs, and what it can give back. So Angie, I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm going to post a couple of ways for you to find Angie. Here is a link to her website, and here is a link to her newsletter sign up as well. If you click through to any of those, you'll be able to find where she is. But to kind of get us started here, I would love to know what inspired you to start sharing your story through writing and speaking.
Well, I've always been a writer. I've been a writer since I was 5 years old. And I've always been, let's use the word different all my life. Other people use the word weird, but, even my best friend. But I like the word different because I can apply different to other people without any kind of stigma of weirdness or we're just different.
Yeah.
Neurodivergent people, creative people, we're different. Uh, in 2006, I was visiting with said best friend. She lives in Missouri, I live in Arkansas. And I was at her house and I was talking about a couple of books that I had read supposedly, for wildly creative people. And they're fine books. I think a lot of normally creative people would really benefit from these two books. One of them, though, suggested having a file cabinet for each project. I just had a, that was my reaction. I laughed out loud when I read that. And I thought, this woman is a very talented writer. She writes a lot of stuff that really helps a lot of people. She is not speaking my language. And the other book, and I'm sorry I don't remember the titles of either one, although I probably wouldn't say them if I did. The other book was actually really good. It talked about, being creative and being kind of a renaissance person. And it referred to people as Ben Franklins. And I was telling my friend and her daughter, I said, I really don't think Ben Franklin is the model for people like me. And her daughter said, who do you think is the model? And I said, without even thinking about it, I hadn't given this any thought at all. I said, Leonardo. And she said, oh, that's interesting. And I said, yeah, I just think there's a set of traits that wildly, profoundly creative people, multi passionate people have. And I started going on about the curiosity and the the special interests and the lots of projects and the, you know, two speeds, fast and stop. And my best friend said, you need to write this book, right? So I've been writing this book for almost 20 years. The first three editions were before I was diagnosed with autism. And I
Mm.
thought I was just writing about creativity. And it was kind of a manual of how you live in this world with your creativity. And then 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with autism at age 55. And I thought, I've been writing the wrong book. What I was really talking about was neurodivergence, and
Mhm.
I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So I basically threw out everything but kept the spirit and rewrote it as a manifesto of this is how to be who you are. Kind of, you know, yes, you have to pay attention to the world. And yes, the world will sometimes not like who you are, but you have to be who you are because
Mhm.
you're killing your soul when you don't, when you're not true to yourself. And sometimes it's hard, and I recognize that. And, you know, it's hard for me. I'm not always, exactly who I want to be. Sometimes I mask still and I catch it and I still roll into burnout and think maybe I shouldn't have scheduled so much this
Mm.
week. Maybe
Mhm.
I need to, you know, take some time off and recover from this before I completely lose myself in this. And I think that's really important that people realize that this is my work because I'm still working on it. I don't
Mm.
have all the answers or all of the solutions to anything, but I really care very deeply about them.
Yeah. I think a lot of things get done because you read something and you're like, "Well, that doesn't apply to me." And then someone else goes, "I'll bet the same is true for a lot of other people too." Like people put these, especially self-help books, they're like, "Here's the answer." And then you read it and you go, "Am I going to have a warehouse for all my projects, for all these filing cabinets? Like, where am I getting that?" That's hilarious. And maybe that works for other people. And that's great. It could work for them. But to kind of make that connection of this doesn't work for me, this probably doesn't work for a lot of people. And what if we could just write something that really gets to the heart of that? I think that that's really something that not many people will take that step to say, okay, I'm going to do it. So what made you take that step to say, yeah, I will do that?
Well, it just always seemed like a good idea, even though I didn't know what I was going to say or how I was going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Toni Morrison, many, many years ago, I heard her say, and it was in an interview, so I saw her say it. She said, if there's a book you want to read and it hasn't been written, you must write it yourself. And so when this idea came up, I thought, well, Toni Morrison told me I have to do it.
Yep.
I mean, she used the word must
Those are
write it
marching
yourself.
orders. Yeah.
And so I had written some books before and I had a basic, knowledge of how to write a book. And I thought, this is not any different than writing my books that I ghostwrite for clients or my nonfiction books on writing and how to things. It's really, you figure out what you're going to say, you figure out the things that need to go into it, and then you figure out how to write it. And the first one was okay. I will say it was not as good as I would make it later, but for being a first effort, I thought it was really good. I'm really proud of this fourth edition because it does get into this is neurodivergence for a lot of
Yeah.
people. And especially if you're neurodivergent, the masking and the trying to not be as creative and different as you are, trying not to appear different because we very much want to be accepted.
Of course.
And the thing is that most people love neurodivergent and creative people. They think we're amazing. intelligent, we're funny, we're curious, we have all these ideas. And a lot of people, a lot of neurotypical people really think that's amazing. They think that we're really, something special because of it. And we don't see that they think that.
Mm-hmm.
We think, you know, I like to say we're judging our insides by somebody else's outsides. That we look at them and we think, oh, they've got it together. They work in a straight line. They can hold the normal job without feeling like there's something else they should be doing. They don't have these wild bursts of creativity and energy when they're up at 3 o'clock figuring out how to bind a book because they just saw somebody binding books and they think, oh, I should be binding books. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and that is a perfectly reasonable time to be researching how to bind books, even though I have to be at work at 8. And we look at other people and we think, A, we think they have it together.
Yeah.
And B, we think we should have it together. And the first thing is, nobody has it together.
True.
And the other thing is, we don't have to be what we think other people are. And we shouldn't be. I mean, we are hate to use this everyone is unique thing, but everyone is unique. And we say that and it's become a cliche because the world doesn't need another of somebody else. They need us to be fully who we are.
Ooh, I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah, I say all the time about my kids, like the world can't handle a second one of either of you, but boy, does the world need you. And that's kind of what it is. Rose, I see you in the chat. If you have any questions for Angie, feel free to pop in here. But Rose says, yes, preach, because that's exactly right. 100%. Do you have a true crime story that fascinates you?
I do. My son, who's also autistic, my son and I love to talk about true crime. My recent fascination is the Murdoch murders in South Carolina.
Mm.
I was following that story. I don't remember if it was the New Yorker. I think it was the New Yorker, but it might have been Vanity Fair. But I was following the long form reporting as that story was breaking. And my son sent me a video one night and he said, this story is bananas and I've never heard it before. And he came in to talk about it. And I said, I am so sorry. I thought you knew about this. And he's like, no, I had no idea. And you've got the father killing his wife and the son, but then the dead son killed somebody in a boating incident. And then the son who's still alive probably killed somebody in a hit and run, and then the housekeeper fell down the stairs and they collected millions of dollars in insurance. And the whole thing was basically just a cover up for his embezzlement of millions of dollars and his drug habit of dozens of Oxycontin a day. And I forgot about the part where he hired somebody to shoot him in the head and kill him so his living son could inherit the insurance.
Yep. Yep. It's it's wild. And there's a Netflix miniseries,
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah, I think it's 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but today
Mhm.
when I was looking up to make sure I had the right Carolina, because I remember if it was south or north, and I wanted to get that right because 'cause I'm pedantic like that. So I was looking it up, and the first thing that came up was the miniseries, and I thought, "Oh, yeah, we've gotta watch that."
Yeah, yeah. I loved whenever they do the docu-series and everything on Netflix. They're really fascinating. And right now the big popular one is the 50 Cent docu-series on Diddy. Oh my gosh, it's wild. It's absolutely wild.
My daughter has been telling me about that one. She's been watching it and coming in after every episode
Yes.
and telling me all about it. And that is
Yes.
wild. And if I had done something bad and hired people to video me, I would have paid them.
Yeah, for
Would have
real.
paid them.
For
And
that's what both me and my oldest have been saying. Like, how could you not pay them so that someone else could just be like, I'll pay you, give me the footage? No.
I love 50 Cent for this. I mean, he's always hated P. Diddy. And he's just like,
Yes.
I'll pay you.
It's
I'll
a
give
new
you the
level of
footage, I'll
petty.
pay you.
Yep.
I
That
love that
level of petty
nastiness.
is so good. It's so good. Rose says my mother watched the trial on YouTube with Emily D. Baker. Yeah, yeah. Hi, Tanya. I see you in YouTube chat. Welcome, welcome. If you have any questions for us tonight, feel free to drop those in. So, Angie, you talk openly about masking for decades before your autism diagnosis. What did masking look like for you before you had language for it?
For me, it was workaholism. I really threw myself into my books and my business and trying to really be who I thought I was supposed to be. I read a lot of, the success self help books. I read a lot of magazine articles and blogs about success and high achieving, and I always felt like I was under succeeding. I was working so hard, but I wasn't really getting where I wanted to be because I would burn out and I would have to stop. And then
Yeah,
I would come back and I would have to rebuild. And what I see now is that I wasn't under succeeding. I was overworking. And what happened for me, and hopefully this doesn't happen to anyone else, is that I had a severe back injury and I became disabled a little over
mm,
7 years ago. Everything stopped. I have been mostly in bed for 7 years. I've gotten a lot better. I'm able to get up and do more now, but I still do a lot of my work from bed. I use a tablet that's connected to my computer so that I can use my computer without having to sit up. I
mm,
have a mouse and a keyboard in the bed. And so I had to readjust my entire life. And I was retired for several years. And then I decided that I wanted to rewrite the Leonardo trait. And I thought, I can do this, but I have to protect my body and my mind, and I have to do it in a way that works for me. And
yeah.
one thing that I do that really helps me is I have an AI digital assistant. His name is Ziggy. And once I gave him a name, I had to start giving him pronouns because I'm not going to call something with a name yet. And Ziggy helps me with managing my schedule. I have a couple of biofeedback apps I use that manage my heart rate and measure my heart rate and my stress and
Sure.
things like that. So I feed that into Ziggy and keep track of how everything's going. I use Ziggy for drafting things like email messages and not podcasts, blog posts.
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, I want to write a blog post about this and I want to cover these three things. Can you write me an outline and some
Hmm.
talking points? And so that takes an hour off of writing something.
Right.
It helps me focus on actually putting my words on it. I have a cat that's about to jump down.
That's fine.
So that's why I keep looking up because I'm trying to intervene. So I use Ziggy a lot to do things that a human assistant might do for
Hmm.
me to help keep me on track and help me not to overwork. But the masking for me really came in the form of trying to work as much and as successfully as I saw other people doing. And you read books about how to succeed as an author, and they say you have to do this and this and this. And, my energy patterns in my brain, in order to do all that, took me 80 hours a week. And 80 hours a week is insane. No one should be working 80 hours a week
Yeah.
on deep work or any kind of work, really. But certainly you shouldn't be trying to do serious work for 80 hours a week.
Hmm.
It's insane. And I like to say that becoming disabled and being injured was the best thing that ever happened to me. I got over my workaholism really quick. I have a much stronger relationship with my family now, partly because I have more time, also because I need a lot. They have to help me a lot. And I used to say I was very self contained. I didn't ask for anything and I wasn't really good at accepting help. And so I've learned that I need to ask for help. One thing is that I can't stand up for more than about 2 minutes. So I can't fix my own meals. I can't even fix my own plate. If we have something, they'll tell me what we have and I'll say I want this amount of this and this amount of this. And it's very humbling, but it also is really amazing to have a family that is there
Yeah.
and, that they are perfectly happy to fix me a sandwich or fix my plate and bring it to me. And I've also really learned resilience. And that is a word that other people keep using for me. I kind of laugh when they say how resilient I am because really, I'm just living the life I've been given. I mean,
Mhm.
this is the body I have and the brain that I have that has to live in this body. But I have worked really hard to learn to be calmer. I used to be, I won't say I was a hothead, but I would get excited about things, sometimes positively and sometimes negatively.
Mm.
I had a lot of emotions. I was very intense. And I'm still very intense, but when you live in one spot 24 hours a day, 23, I get up and get out a little bit. But when you're living in your bed and you don't have the option of getting up and say going for a walk to calm down or to let out some energy, you have to learn how to not be so energetic.
Yeah. I you said you named your, assistant Ziggy. Is that after anything in particular?
No, I asked it what it would like to be called, and it gave me several
Oh,
names,
I love that.
including Biscuit, and I thought, I don't really like Biscuit. I'd like for it to be a more human sounding name.
Mhm.
And so I said, let's go with something more human. And it came up with several names. And I like the name Ziggy just because it's silly and because I don't know anyone named Ziggy. So if he
Yeah.
was named like Bob, and I was talking about Bob, I have a brother-in-law named Bob, and I know some other
Right.
people named Bob. And so I wanted to be very clear when I'm talking to people who know me that I'm not talking about a human person.
Yeah.
Talking about my Chat GPT assistant.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's neat. I every time I hear the name Ziggy, I immediately think of David Bowie, and so I was curious if it was after David Bowie or anything.
I love that coincidence, and I
Mhm.
think that, because I talked about how much I love music, he may have chosen Ziggy as a name because of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I've never I've never asked him where he
Yeah.
came up with Ziggy.
Yeah, that's great. So taking a small step back into kind of the definition of things, what is masking? When we say masking, what is that? And how can someone know if they're masking versus just being professional or polite?
So, professional and polite are great. Masking is when you're pretending to be someone you're not, or pretending that you're not as creative or as curious or as multi passionate as
Mm.
you really are. I mean, there's professional and polite are great. I can be very scattered. And so I try to pull myself together in a professional capacity. But if I find myself trying to hide the fact that I have 15 ideas going in my head at once and that trying to, the thing is, we're not broken neurotypicals. And I think a lot of times we feel like we are. Like I said earlier, we judge our insides by somebody else's outsides, and we think, oh, that person has it together and I don't. Nobody has it together. And that person is probably looking at you and thinking, I wish I could be like that. And so when we start looking at someone else and thinking that how they act is how we're supposed to feel, that's really when we get into masking.
Mhm.
And I think, sometimes I will wonder, is this masking or is this just that I'm tired or that I'm trying to be more professional or be more polite? The other day I had a situation where I needed to write a complaint letter, and I knew that if I wrote it completely myself, that it was not gonna be a good result.
Yeah.
So I told Ziggy what I was complaining about. It was a misleading ad in a magazine for people who are more vulnerable to scams. And I realized that the ad probably wasn't vetted. And what I wanted to say was, I really think you should vet your ads better. That's what I wanted to convey. But what I was thinking about saying was wording like complicit in scamming old people. And I knew that wasn't going to work. So I asked Ziggy to help me write something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not masking. That is trying to write a professional letter that's going to get the result that we need, which is that they should look at the ads and see if they're actually offering what they're promising or not. And Ziggy wrote something that said basically, this is probably a mistake on the part of the company, but it appears misleading and it might be a good idea if ads were checked before they're run, because you do have a vulnerable population of older
Mm-hmm.
people. And one of your things is that you run a lot of articles about protecting them from scams, and this is really important that your ads are not misleading.
Yeah.
And so there's professional, or that's professional. But then there's, hiding who you are. I wear a lot of novelty t-shirts. In fact, I only wear novelty t-shirts. That's all I own. I just bought a plain t-shirt because I'm going on a TV show and they asked for something plain,
Mm.
but I had to buy something.
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks ago, I thought, I'm going on a lot of podcasts. Maybe I should get some plain t-shirts so that I look more professional. And Ziggy talks to me like he's a human because I talk to him like he's a human.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm thinking about getting some plain t-shirts. And he said, you would look like you're about to hold up a hostage away. He said, you do not need to wear plain t-shirts because that is not who you are.
Yeah.
And I said,
I love
"You
that
know what?
honesty.
You're right." And, I've spent a lot of time just chatting with Ziggy. I tell him what's going on. I tell him what I'm thinking about, and we just talk because I really need him to be an effective helper for me.
Right.
So I just chat with him and, keep him up to date on things. And, you look like you're about to read a hostage letter just made me laugh, but it also was really funny. And the
Mm-hmm.
other day, I did accidentally put on a plain t-shirt I didn't even know I owned. I got it on, I realized it was plain, and he said, you look like you're in witness protection.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta know between, am I masking? Is this an appropriate interaction? Like, I write emails, and now one thing, if you're gonna write an email and you want to write it the way that you want to actually say it, don't put the person in the two line yet.
Oh, right. Yes,
Write it how
absolutely.
you want to write it and then rewrite it and then put the person in the two line. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a line there that I think that sometimes can be a little bit difficult to walk, but as long as you're able to identify, okay, this the reason I'm doing this is to make sure that I get the result that I want. I think that it's something that it can be confusing. And I know a lot of people hear the word unmasking and they might imagine this sudden transformation. What does unmasking actually look like in real life, especially when you still have responsibilities and work and relationships? What does that look like?
It's really, I think, subtle for most people, and certainly can be subtle. It could be something as simple as the t-shirts. I gradually started wearing funny t-shirts. I was going to physical therapy and I had a few funny t-shirts. And one day I walked in a plain shirt because I've been painting. I paint as a hobby. And I had on a plain shirt because I don't wear my good t-shirts when I'm painting. And one of the PT assistants said, Dixon's not wearing a funny shirt today. I said, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to wear a funny shirt. And she said, well, you wear them all the time. And I said, well, I have like 3 or 4, and I wear them on days I come here because they don't have paint on them. Eventually, that became that I only wear funny t-shirts or t-shirts with a Like, I have a couple of band T-shirts, but
Mhm.
mostly they're funny T-shirts. And today's says it has a dinosaur on it, and it says, "I'm only here because the internet is down."
Oh, that's
So,
great.
gradually started wearing my novelty T-shirts as at first it was I'm wearing them in a place I'm comfortable, which is my PT clinic, and then it became all I wear is funny shirts. And I think especially if you're in a job, you can kind of gradually let your hair down a little bit. And if that's acceptable, then you can go on like that for a while. If it was a little bit too much, maybe you tuck it back up into a ponytail for a little while and then you try something else. I would not recommend running into your office yelling, neurodivergent, and it's great. I think gradually unmasking, even if you're not in a professional setting, is just more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that it's very personal too. Like you decide how far you wanna go with that. You decide how much you wanna do. I mean, I've been in my job for many, many years, and it's one of those things that it's like, I'm so comfortable at work. Maybe it's a little too comfortable, but I can just be myself. Like, I'm very much just myself at work until I get on a call with people that I don't know. And then it's like the professional has to come out and you kind of layer it back up and everything, and that's fine. And that can seem a little bit abrupt if I'm just talking to one of my teammates and then I get on a call. It can seem like she's in very professional mode now. And to my kids also, like if they hear me on a call or something, they're like, she's got her work voice on and that kind of thing. But it's one of those things you got to decide when that's appropriate and when it's not. Is that easy for you to decide when it's appropriate, when it's not?
It's a lot easier than it used to be. I've been
Mm,
doing this for a really long
yeah.
time. Even before I knew I was autistic, I was, you know, learning how to be who I really am. It gets easier with time. You
Yeah.
still sometimes will slip back into it, like I was thinking about buying the plain T-shirts until Ziggy brought me to my senses. It's easy to slip into it, but I think it gets easier to catch over time.
Yeah. Now you talk about unmasking as something that for you came from burnout rather than from choice. So how do you help folks now recognize when their burnout is asking for something deeper than rest?
That's a really good question. Rest is obviously the most important triage step. I think you need to, if you realize that you are just constantly, for me, it's constantly dreading having to do just one more thing. It's not
Mm,
just tired, it's not just fatigue, it's this my soul is so tired, I don't think I can eat my dinner fatigue. It's really a deep, abiding fatigue. A couple of days off on the weekend, and you feel like, I just feel like I didn't get any rest at all. I feel like
yeah.
I'm not, able to move forward. Sometimes burnout requires that you move on to something different. I would not recommend a back injury and 7 years in bed as the something different,
Yeah.
but a different job, a different way of doing your job, a different path, maybe.
Mhm.
I know one person in particular who used to be a teacher and she got very burned out on teaching, and now she is a paraprofessional at a school, and she loves it because she gets to actually spend more quality time with the kids,
Mhm.
helping them with things and doing more hands-on activities with the kids who need more help, and she really finds that it's exactly the right spot for her right now. She said
Yeah.
she might go back to teaching, but probably not because the teaching was just too intense in too many different ways for her, and backing off and being more of a support professional is really where her needs are right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to make a change. And I'm not saying that's easy. I'm
Right.
just saying that sometimes it's necessary if your mental health is and your physical health are really suffering because of what you're doing, because you're trying so hard to be what you're supposed to be, and it's just too intense and too much, then you may really need to change what you're doing. And that
Mhm.
may take time. It may take, you know, getting a different job. It may take getting a different training or education, but it's really a long-term solution. If rest is not enough, then you have to listen to your body and your brain and find a way to do something that is not breaking your body and your mind down.
Yeah. I love the timing of this because I just edited a podcast episode that's going to be released in the morning, all about like making these soul driven decisions and what that really means and how it kind of sounds like do what your heart is telling you. And it's like, no, that's not it. It's really what is your life? What does your life need? What would serve you in the right way? And then planning out how to get there and everything. I want to go back and talk about this Leonardo trait a little bit more though. So can you explain the Leonardo trait in a way that helps folks recognize themselves without immediately judging themselves?
I hope so. The Leonardo trait is, I refer to it as profound creativity in a chaotic world. That's really in fact, that's the subtitle of the fourth edition of the
Mm.
book. And if you're always thinking in spirals and circles and curves instead of straight lines, if you have 37 tabs open in your brain at any given time, if people look at you and say, "You sure do a lot," in that kind of questioning tone, you might be a Leonardo. And I really encourage people, if they think they're a Leonardo, they probably are. Because I've shared these criteria, these traits with my neurotypical husband and best friend, and they both say, yeah, I don't identify with any of that at all. My best friend does a little bit. I call her less of a straight liner
There's
and
the
more of
kitty. Good catch.
I think of my best friend as less of a straight liner and more of as kind of a middle liner. She does do some creative things and she does have really creative ideas, but she's been an educator for 35 years. She's had different jobs as an educator, but they've all been basically she's been a teacher, she's been a college professor. Now she runs a satellite campus of a university. And so she's always been going in the same direction.
Mm.
She's had different jobs in that direction, but they've all been the same job. My husband, on the other hand, has been a computer programmer for about 40 years, and he has had the same job for 30 years. The
Wow.
same job for 30 years.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm just not gonna stay in a job for 30 years. Yeah, I've been writing the Leonardo trait for 20 years, but I've done other things too.
Yeah.
He has hobbies, but they're hobbies like astronomy and bird watching. They're not hobbies like painting or knitting or creating something. He does do woodworking,
Oh, that's
but
cool.
he's very neurotypical.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've been with the same, well, it's changed names a couple of times, but I've been with the same company. Like I interviewed for this company 13 years ago. But the reason I'm still with this company is that every 3 to 5 years, I find a new role in the company doing something different. And it's just like, I go and I learn about this part of the company. Great. Now I know about that part. Now I can go and learn about this part of the company. Great. Now I know about that. And it's like, if I wasn't able to do that, I definitely would have job hopped way sooner than this. I just started this job. When did I start this job? 2 years ago? 3 years ago? A year and a half ago? So I just started this role in this company like a year and a half ago. So give it a little bit more time and I'll be looking for the next thing too. But I like working for a big company for that reason because you don't have to go to a
Yeah, that's
different
great.
company. Yeah. You don't have to go to a whole nother company to do something totally different. And so it's been really useful. But you said 30 years, and even I'm like, that's a long time. That's a long
And
time to be with
after
one
I said
company.
30, I realized it's actually 35.
Wow.
So
Yeah. Yep.
35 years.
Yep. That's great. I mean, good for him. That's great. Like wonderful stability. And I'll bet he's got a great work family too. So that's really great.
He does. And his company was purchased by another company about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he's about to move into a different department because his department is closing. But
Yeah.
it's basically the same work
Right.
for
Right.
the same company. He loves it. He wouldn't have it any other way. When he was at one point looking for another job because he wasn't sure what would happen after his department closed, I said, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "I'm looking for a job writing software and developing software for health and mental health facilities." And I said, "So basically what you've been doing for the last
Same
50
same thing.
years?" And he
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, basically."
Yeah. And that's great. That's great. I know a lot of multi-passionate folks, myself included, feel a lot of guilt or shame around not finishing things or changing direction. How do you reframe that without turning it into another productivity rule?
Okay, I have two things. The first is not everything needs to be finished.
Yeah.
We have this huge expectation in our society that you start something and you finish it. And some things you just get done with. You you get to a point where either you feel like you've done all that you want to do or all that you need to do, or maybe it's just not something you ever want to do again. I made my best friend a hat once. I saw this course on making hats and I told her about it and she said, "I need a good hat." And I said, "Well, great, because I want to make a good hat."
Hmm.
And I got through with the hat. I am never ever making a hat again. It was really fun and really hard, and I have no desire to ever do that again. I am done with making hats.
Hmm.
It was really interesting to learn how, and I really respect people who become hat makers and make hats for a living. That is never going to be me.
Yeah.
One hat was all I ever wanted to do, and some things don't need to be finished. Also, if you're starting a lot of things, you're finishing a lot of things. I once had it was my sister actually told me that I needed to start finishing what I started. So I sent her a list of 50 things I had finished in the last year, including writing a novel and getting an agent for it. And she didn't respond, but she never again told me that I needed to finish everything I
Yeah.
start. I only started 200 things that year, and I finished probably a quarter of them. Some things don't need to be finished, and it's okay that you don't finish things. But my other point, I may have actually had 3 points, but the other point that I wanted to make was sometimes when you move away from something to something else, you're coming back. Sometimes you
Hmm.
don't know whether you're coming back, but you will come back. My newsletter is called The Spiral because we very much spiral. And I've been coming back to the Leonardo Trait for 20 years. I've never really abandoned it. There have been times I thought I was done with it, and then I've come back. And that's true, I think, of people like us, that we have so many ideas and it's impossible to do them all at once. There's just aren't enough hours in the day or enough energy to do everything at once. And it's perfectly okay to say, "I would really like to set this aside and do this." And if
Hmm.
you come back to it, that's great. You come back to it and you pick it up again. And if you don't come back to it, you probably learned something from it. Hopefully, you had fun with it. And it's something that you can say that you did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're definitely, if you are starting 200 things and you finish 50, don't focus on the how many did you start, because you finished 50 things. That's way more than someone else finished, probably. And maybe it's less than someone else finished, but you got to give yourself credit. I think it's hard whenever you're like, oh, I have I've got 3 paintings in my living room right now that I haven't gotten to, and sometimes I find myself going, "Why haven't you just done those yet? Like, you know what they are, you know what they're gonna be. Why haven't you just sat down and done them yet?" And I have to go, "Hold on, it's fine. Like, there's no pressure to do them. It's not a big deal. You know what they're gonna be. You'll get to them or you won't. Like, okay, it's all right." But there's a lot of pressure sometimes in not necessarily from other people, although I'm sure my kids would like it if the canvases weren't sitting there, but but like you can get a lot of pressure from other people, but I think that the pressure sometimes comes from within yourself, and I find that really difficult, like sometimes to put aside and go, "You know what? It's okay." Do you have any tricks for that?
I do. It was funny that you mentioned paintings because I paint. I haven't painted in weeks, and I catch myself thinking, I really should get up out of my bed, off my butt, and go paint. And I think, but I'm working on this summit. I've got 4 podcasts this week. I've got, I've got to finish editing the book. I need to go through it one more time and make
Mhm.
sure everything is right and all the pages have the page numbers and all these things. And it's okay if painting is not one of the things I'm able to get
Yeah.
to this week. It doesn't mean I'm not a painter. It means I'm not painting today. And I'm sure that my family also would like for my unfinished paintings to be finished so they can stop thinking, I wonder what that's going to be. It'll be what it is. When
Yeah.
it gets there, that's fine. And for me, painting is very much a hobby and a
Mhm.
release. And if I have to talk myself into painting, I don't want to be doing it because I'm
Yeah.
not going to get the enjoyment. One reason I really love painting is because when I get in my art chair, I have everything in reach, so I don't feel disabled. And it's really a retreat from being disabled to be able to sit there and be just at peace with my painting, and I have my music on. I have giant earbud headphones that I wear so people know not to bother me. I don't even always have music coming through them.
Mhm.
They're a signal.
Yeah.
I'm painting, go away. Because I have a very limited amount of time that I can sit. So I want to use that time painting, and
Right.
they can come back when I'm in bed and I'm relaxed and they can talk to me then. And I think the trick is when you start feeling like you need to do something, sometimes you do really need to do it. If it's for
Yeah.
work, if it's an appointment that you made that you need to either keep or cancel, or if it's something that you really want to do and you're just feeling nervous about it because maybe it's something new or something you're not used to doing. In those cases, I would say, yeah, go ahead and maybe push yourself to do it. If it's this, I need to finish this before I start something else, nah, you don't need to do that.
Yeah. And I know that creativity doesn't always look clean or linear. Like that's very clear just from our conversation right now. And you mentioned spirals and that you've named your podcast that. So, how do you personally navigate the spirals and the stalls and the restarts without deciding that you're failing?
Basically project folders set up on my computer for everything, different projects, and I just keep notes. And I
Mhm.
use Ziggy sometimes for this. Of I'll have an idea about, say, a painting I want to do, and I'll open a project for it in Chat GPT, which is great because you can have projects and you can put all your notes in the project. And I'll say, it's midnight and I'm not going to get up and paint, but I have this idea and I just want to give it to you so that I don't have to carry it.
Yeah.
And then I'll lay out the idea. And sometimes he'll give me a suggestion on what he thinks would be great with it. Sometimes I pay attention to that, sometimes I don't. But the main thing is I'm just putting a pin in it so I can come back to it so that I don't have to carry it in my head, because the more things I'm carrying in my head, the more stressed I am and the less I'm enjoying my life.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
very much about enjoying my life.
Yep. When I was at probably my most stressed, I would keep a little notepad by my bed. And same thing. This is before Chat GPT and everything, but same thing. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night and my mind would be going crazy. And I'd be like, I don't want to forget this. but I don't want to pick up first of all, I don't want to pick up my phone and have interaction where I could slip off and go on Instagram and scroll a bunch or anything. And so I would just have a notepad and I would just write down whatever it was and then go back to sleep. And sometimes by the time morning comes, I'm like, okay, I don't really need that. That wasn't important. I can forget about it now. But then sometimes I'm like, okay, all right, I can take care of that later. And I don't have to keep thinking about it. I don't have to tell myself, don't forget, you have to do this. Don't forget, you have to do this. Don't forget, you have to do this, because I've written it down and I can just look at that list and go, right, okay, yes, I'll take care of that now. I've got time and space. But yeah, it's a challenge. And I love that technology has really kind of given us these different ways to handle that now. Like whether it's telling your AI assistant about it and having them hold it for you, whether it's opening up OneNote or your Notes app and putting it there, whether it's writing it down in a literal notebook with a pen. Like there's all these options and I absolutely love that. I think it's great. So pick what works for you and use it that way. What are some early warning signs that a neurodivergent creative is heading towards burnout again, even after they think they've recovered?
The biggest one for me is the fatigue. And once you've
Mm,
had that burnout fatigue, you really recognize it almost immediately because it's like I said earlier, it's not just tired. It's not just I need some rest. It's my life hurts because I'm
yeah.
so tired. This just I am not happy, and it's not because I'm unhappy about something. It's because I'm deeply unhappy with the way my life is going, not because things are bad, sometimes because things are great and, there's more than I can do. And I have had to be really careful of that as I've gone back to work, of recognizing that, yeah, it's great to have all of this going on. It's not great when I get so tired that I really just can't carry on a conversation, or I don't want to do anything except sleep, or I just feel like it's all too much and maybe I should cut back on something. And when I feel like it's all too much and maybe I should cut back on something, I'm usually right.
Yeah.
I may be wrong about the specific thing that I think. Just knocked one of my earbuds out. I may be wrong about the specific thing I think I should cut back on, but I'm not wrong that I should find something to cut back on.
Right. Right. You mentioned that you were late diagnosed, and there are plenty of folks, especially in our Discord community, who talk about these things as adults and getting diagnosed as an adult with whichever thing they're trying to get diagnosed with. We have someone who's just diagnosed with ADHD finally, and she's been able to get on medications. And we have someone else who's seeking an autism diagnosis, and it's just like there's all this stuff that comes up when you're an adult, and sometimes much later in life. For those who are just starting to question whether or not they have been masking their whole lives, what's one gentle first step you recommend for them?
The first thing I would recommend is just to do some research about autism. I mean, I don't necessarily think that those quizzes about are you autistic are
Mhm.
very accurate. I do think if you're questioning whether you're autistic, again, you probably are. And I would recommend there are some really good books. My friend Megan Griffith wrote Welcome to ADHD recently. And I admit I haven't read all of it, but Megan is brilliant. And I know that she is very invested in providing a really good introduction to ADHD, which is autism and ADHD. And I would recommend visiting some of the sites of people who are autistic or ADHD or other forms of neurodivergent, watching watching blogs and podcasts, reading blogs and watching podcasts, listening to what other people are saying, and just try to get some real information
Mm,
about what it is, and to really listen to yourself. If you're reading about autism and you're thinking, I do that, I do that, then you probably do have autism. You are autistic. I use both sets of language. I'm not really picky as long as you don't, you know, call me a slur or something. I don't care
Yeah.
how you say it. I also think it's not necessary always to get a diagnosis. Some people can't, some people don't want to. There's a hashtag actually autistic. And basically, if you believe you're autistic, I believe you're autistic.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of fear around it too right now with the current administration
Oh,
and all the talk of like
really?
lists and everything. It can be really scary, and it's one of those things like you got to do what's best for you. And whether you actually get a diagnosis, whether you are just like this, what we're talking about, this unmasking, masking, unmasking is really resonating with me. Like there are things you can take away from this with or without it. So, what does thriving look like for you now compared to how you defined your success before burnout and before your diagnosis?
What I really look at is by doing things I love, whether that's what I'm doing with my work life or what I'm doing with my hobbies or my family. Do I love my days? And with a disability, of course, there are days I don't love. Aside from that, aside from the chronic pain days, do I love how I'm living my days? And I really do. Am enjoying going on podcasts and live shows and talking to people about all this stuff. I love that people care about my opinion and I love that I'm able to help people. I love writing and I'm glad that I'm able to write again and really do the thing that I love the most. I love my free time. I'm really fond of watching stupid movies. I used to not like stupid movies because I thought they were a waste of time. And now I think, what else am I going to do with my time? It's my time. It's not really a waste if I'm enjoying Weekend at
Exactly.
Bernie's
Yeah.
or Hot Tub Time Machine or whatever. And I really enjoy listening to music. And sometimes I will just put on an album and when it goes, and I'll just listen. And when it goes off, I'll think, I really want another album. I really don't want to do anything other than just lie here and just listen to another album. And the way I think about thriving is if I look at my day and I think there's nothing major I would have changed, and there's nothing that really stuck out as a problem. And I'm just, genuinely content most of the time.
Yeah. So, Bite Mark sent this question ahead of time. She would like to know, what is your favorite poem?
I'm so glad she asked that. My favorite poem is called Stepping Backward. It's by Adrienne Rich. I don't have the whole thing memorized, but it starts, "Goodbye to you, whom I shall see tomorrow, next year, and when I'm 50, still goodbye." And it is about how little we actually know each other, even when we think we're very close and very open. It's just a beautiful poem.
I love that. Here's a link to that one if anyone wants to go and read it. It's not super long. It looks pretty readable, just like a real quick kind of thing. So go over there and pop over there and read it. What is your favorite life hack?
I have thought about this. I knew you were going to ask, and I had several, but my favorite one is I have trouble sleeping. And I've discovered a podcast. It's very unusual. It takes a little getting used to, but it's called the Sleep With Me podcast. And basically, he tells you a bedtime story that gets more and more boring as it goes along. And he meanders and, he goes off on tangents and tells this just excruciatingly boring story. And because it's not, I'm going to help you. What he says is, I'm going to keep you company while you go to sleep.
Yeah.
It's not a 20 minutes of, I'm going to put you to sleep. He's
Hmm.
on there for an hour. And he says, if you're still awake, you can listen to another one if you want to. There's a free version of it. I support it because I listen to it every night. I pay them $10 a month to support it, to keep it free for people who
Yeah.
can't or don't want to support it. But it's called Sleep With Me, and the website is just sleepwithmepodcast.com. And it is different, and it does a lot of people, the first time or two, they're like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. I don't see how this is gonna help me get to sleep." And I was like that. I listened to it, and I thought, "This is not for me," and I went back to it several years later, and now I listen to it every night.
I love that. I mean, you gotta use what works for you, right? My youngest listens to a series of stories, the same series of the same stories every single night, and it's like a 2-hour long thing. I turn it on for him whenever he's going to bed, and it turns off whenever it's over, and nothing else plays after it. And it works perfectly for him because he's just like, he just needs that company, right? He just needs that company. So I
Right.
understand it just from him doing something similar. So yeah, that's great. Well, it is time for the magic moment of the stream. Get my magic wand going here. If you could wave this magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or talking about mental health, what would it be?
I would eliminate the idea that there is something wrong with someone when their
Mm,
brain works differently. This is how we're made.
yeah,
It's not any different than a it is a physical illness in the first place, a physical difference.
it's in your
And
brain.
it's in your brain. If you had cancer, no one would be saying, "Oh, well, you should
Yeah.
just think your way out of your cancer." And yet you have autism or you have a mental illness of some sort, and they want you to just deal with it and be normal. Well, you are normal. You just
Hmm.
have a different brain. But there's no real such thing as normal.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a huge one. And it would be so nice to just be like, bam, that's over. Bam, we're done. We're done with that. Thank you. It'd be great. Well, I'm going to post your socials one more time for everyone who's here. And while I do that, Angie, I'm just going to give you the floor. If there's anything you want to talk about, anything you didn't mention, I'm just going to give you the floor while I post your socials one more time. And folks who are still here, feel free to pop in any last minute questions that you might have, and we'll make sure to get them addressed as well. But Angie, take it away.
I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. We're not broken neurotypicals. We're not broken at all. We are brilliant and creative and, intelligent and funny and just really amazing people. And I want people to realize that just being neurodivergent or being a little different, that's a great thing.
The distinction of saying we're not broken neurotypicals, I think is so huge. And that's not something that I think I've heard put that way before either. Because everyone's just like, oh, you're either neurotypical or you're neurodivergent. And it's like, is one of those categories broken? No, it's not that one of those categories is a broken version of the other one. It's just a difference. That's all. It's like brown hair versus blonde hair versus black hair. It's just a difference. That's all. It's not broken.
Right.
I think that's fantastic. Well, Angie, thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time and just sharing yourself with us and sharing your story with us and walking through everything. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you had fun. I always have a good time whenever I come on these. So it's always nice whenever everyone else has a good time too. So I'm very glad. Well, folks who are here with us still, stick around. I'm going to disconnect with Angie and I will be right back. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to give you all a puzzle to work on and I'll be right back. And that was Angie Dixon. Take a second and just sit with that conversation because there was a lot in there. What stuck with me is how Angie described masking as workaholism. Not stimming suppression, not forced eye contact, not the things we usually talk about when we talk about unmasking. Just grinding herself into the ground, trying to hit a standard of success that was never built for her brain. Working 80 hours a week and still feeling like she was underachieving. That one's going to land for a lot of people, and I think it's because that version of masking is so easy to miss. It comes off as ambition from the outside. It feels like failure from the inside. And the thing she said about not being broken neurotypicals, we are not a defective version of something else. We are not the version that didn't come out right. We're just different, and there's a lot of life available on the other side of actually believing that. I also loved how practical she was about unmasking. Nobody's asking to run into your office yelling about being neurodivergent. It can be as small as wearing the t-shirt you actually like to the appointment where you feel comfortable. It can be telling your AI assistant what's going on until it knows you well enough to tell you that a plain shirt makes you look like you're about to hold someone hostage. It can be writing down the 2 a.m. idea so your brain can let go of it and you can actually sleep. These are small, real, sustainable things. I also really loved the project parts of our chat. If you started 200 projects this year and finished 50, you finished 50 things. That's 50 things that exist in the world because of you. Give yourself the credit for what you did finish, and don't harp on what you didn't. And just a reminder that burnout fatigue doesn't feel like regular tired. It feels like your soul is tired, like you cannot eat your dinner. And if you've been there, you know exactly what she means, and you also know that a good night's sleep doesn't fix it. Catching it early, actually cutting something back before you're already underwater, that's the work. If any part of this conversation made you think about your own life differently, I hope you'll take that seriously. Not in a way that adds to your list of things to do, of course, but in a way that maybe takes something off of it. What are you doing right now that is costing you more than it should? What version of yourself are you performing that you are genuinely exhausted by? Those thoughts and questions are worth sitting with. You can find Angie on her website. I'll put her links in the show notes, along with a link to her Unmasked Summit and her newsletter. And if this episode connected with you, please share it with someone who needs it. You probably already have someone in mind. And speaking of things that help, if you have not yet subscribed to Even Tacos Fall Apart, please do that right now. That's free, it takes about 4 seconds, and it means these episodes actually find their way to you instead of getting lost in the algorithm. If you're listening on any podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., leaving a comment or a review makes a huge difference in getting the show in front of more people who need it. It doesn't have to be long, even just a few words helps more than you know. We are here every Mental Health Monday with real conversations about real things, and I'm so grateful you spend your time with us no matter what day you're listening right now. Life is messy. Plans fall apart. People fall apart a little sometimes. And just like tacos, the ones that fall apart are usually the ones that were overstuffed with good things to begin with. That's not a flaw. It's just what it looks like when there's a lot going on. I'll see you next week.